Okay, so before we went on break, we graphed exponential functions. So when we did this, if I put 0 in here, 10 to the 0 power gave me 1. And if I put 1 in here, 10 to the first power is 10. So those were the 2 points we used to graph. And then we added in the asymptote. So the asymptote was here, and it was y equals 0. So if I put this and this, so that's what the exponential looks like. The log is the inverse of the exponential. So this exponential, the base is 10. What's the base for this log? Right? It's not there, so it's 10. So what I'm going to do, since this is base 10 and this is the inverse, I'm going to use these points, and I'm just going to invert them and graph them. So instead of 0, 1, I'm going to graph 1, 0. Instead of 1, 10, I'm going to graph 10, 1. And this asymptote is y equals 0, so if I invert that, the new asymptote would be x equals 0. So the log looks like this. So I'm going to point out a couple things. It's a curve, right? So we're not going to have anything that looks like this. There's no squaring off here, okay? It's a curve when you do it. And they both get arrows on the end, and the asymptote is a dotted line because you can touch it but not go over it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to graph these. And I'm going to use the knowledge that the log is the inverse of the exponential. So the inverse of this is 3 to the x. So if it's 3 to the x, if I put 0 in, I get 1. And if I put 1 in, I get 3. There's no transformations here, so to graph the log base 3, I'm just going to invert these points. So I'm going to get 1, 0, and 3, 1, and the asymptote is right here. So my domain goes left to right. So left, it starts at 0 and goes to infinity. The range, bottom to top, is negative infinity to infinity. The x-intercept is 1, 0. The asymptote is x equals 0. Is this increasing or decreasing? Increasing. So it's negative infinity to infinity and none here. As x goes to infinity, what's happening to my y? As x goes to infinity, y is getting bigger, so it's going to infinity. So this one says as x goes to negative infinity, does my x go to negative infinity? It stops at 0, so this one doesn't even make sense to do. So for the next one, the inverse is 1/2 to the x. And if I put 0 in, I still get 1. And then what was the next point we picked with the fraction? What is it? Negative 1. And what does that give me for the next number? It inverts the fraction and gives me 2. I don't get any shifts here, so I can go ahead and graph. I can graph 1, 0. And then I'm going to graph 2, negative 1. There's my asymptote. And so this goes like that. So the difference between the top one and the bottom one. The top one is increasing, and what's the bottom one? Decreasing. Okay? So did the asymptote change? Did the x-intercept change? The only thing that changes is your second point. And that determines whether it's increasing or decreasing. Only thing that changes. Yes, I am. Say, I'm so excited, Mrs. Archer. Say it, Joseph. Let's hear it. Say it. Thank you. Okay, so this one, what's the base on this one? E. So the inverse here, so if I put 0, I still get 1. And if I put 1, what does E equal? 2.7. Good. I don't have any transformations, so my asymptote goes here. So 0, 1 is here, and then 2.7 and 1. So it goes like that. Well, it's the best I could do today. Maybe tomorrow I'll be a better teacher. Okay, so what's the base on this one? 1/3. So I'm going to have 0, 1. And what's my next point that I pick with the fraction? -1, and that makes my second point what? 3. And what's the transformation here? So let me ask you, what's going to move the asymptote? What will move it? Up 1, is that going to move my asymptote? What's going to move it? The x, the back and forth, right? So does this one shift it back and forth? So the asymptote's not going to move. So I'm going to go ahead and put that. And so I'm going to do 1, 0, and then I'm going to go up 1. I'm going to do 3, -1, and go up 1. And bam. What's the base for the next one? So that makes my point 0, 1 and 1, 2. What does the first negative do? Nothing? Reflection over x. And then -2 moves it 2 to the right, correct? So, do I have a shift back and forth this time? Yes. So this time the asymptote moves. So I'm going to shift the asymptote 2. Then I'm going to take my point 1, 0. It's right here. Can I reflect 1, 0 over the x-axis? No, because it's right on the x-axis. So I'm going to move it 2 this way. So next I'm going to do 2, 1. Can I reflect that over the x-axis? Yes. So that's down here now, and then I move it 2. So here's my log. Okay, what's the base this time? So the inverse is 4 to the x, which makes us 0, 1, and 1, 4. So what are my shifts this time? 5 to the left and 2 down. So is the asymptote moving this time? Yes, which way? It's moving left 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to go right here. I'm going to start with 1, 0. I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down 2. So that goes right there. And then I'm going to do 4, 1. I'm going to move it 5, and down 2. Whoops. There we go. What's the base this time? 1/2, which means I'm going to get 0, 1, and -1, 2. What's the negative with the x? What's that a reflection over? Over y? And the +3 is 3 up. Asymptote shifting or not shifting? Not shifting, so go ahead and draw that in. So I'm going to start with 1, 0. Can I reflect 1, 0 over the x-axis, over the y-axis? Yep, it goes here and up 3. So my second point was 2 and -1. I'm going to reflect that over the y-axis and then move up 3. So it ends up looking like this. Okay, the last one, what's the base? $10? E, which makes 0, 1, and 1 and 2.7. So the 3, horizontal or vertical? Vertical stretch. Okay, horizontal is in with the x. Vertical is outside. So vertical stretch of 3. And so which variable am I multiplying if it's vertical? Y. So times y. And then -1 is 1 down. So did the asymptote shift? No? So draw in your asymptote. So I start right here at 1, 0. So if I multiply 0 times 3, it's still 0. And so I'm going to move down 1. So my next one is 2.7 and 1. So if I multiply the 1 times 3, I have 2.7 and 3 now, correct? And then I have to move down 1 more. So it's right here. So it ends up looking like this.